you were speaking to the business of the music, and I don't know if artists are unaware. I just don't think they want to tackle that because it's such a time-consuming thing, right? Okay, we got to do this. Now I got to tell you my feature price is now 150. Now I got to do this right now. I got to give my manager his cut, so forth and so on. So with you actually learning the business of it, have you felt a sense of your creativity musically lacking, or is it like building up to the point like, yeah, man, when I get in that booth, it's about to go crazy?
Yeah, it fluctuates. So at a time, it was like I go through spells where I'm not feeling creative at all. Like I'll come here and I'll start working, and if nothing gets going, I'll kind of sit and just go through things that kind of inspire me creatively. So like I'll go look at certain artwork, I'll go to a museum, I'll go look at film, or I'll kind of go through beats because I produce as well. So
Yeah.
just getting into the rhythm of getting back into production, and then there are times where Randy and I have a conversation, or Randy will send me something. Like he'll send me music a lot, and I'll be like, oh, I like this, and like this direction that we want to go. So it fluctuates depending on the amount of business we're dealing with at the time. And when I say I deal with business, I'm not like speaking in absolutes. Like him and I are both
Of course,
like, doing
of course.
business. So
I was about to say something, but I was about to send a $10 cash app.
yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So go ahead.
But don't get me wrong, I love doing business. It's just how it affects the creative flow sometimes. So like for instance, 52 when I did the album, that was like a regiment when I'm making an album. I'm kind of up early. I go to the gym, ride my bike, I'm playing beats, and then I come and I just get into my production bag and then kind of go into songwriting bag. I try to keep the business separate from that so that I can kind of stay within that realm of creativity. But other than that, yeah, I mean, it's pretty. I say this might be the most creative I've been in a while.
Really?
Just because of the stuff. I mean, the art collection I was working on, and that's kind of funneling back into the musical ideas we have. So just writing for that.
And you produced majority of Filthy 2 or all of it? I can't remember.
I did all of it. I did all of it with the help of my friend Dave, who he taught me how to produce on Machine. So he pretty much gave me a template of how to produce. That's actually his jam. He gave me some of his equipment, and yeah, I just went from there and just started producing it.
So with being an artist and being a producer, and I think you also said you're starting to engineer a little bit now?
No, I'm not engineer. No, I can, but
you said you tried or
yeah,
something of that
that's
nature.
a whole. I got so much respect for engineers that I wouldn't even try to disrespect them and say I'm an engineer now. I'd rather just go get somebody because I believe in like finding people who excel at this specific skill set than me trying to be the person that does everything. Like so, if you do this, like if you record well, I'd rather I can record myself in here, but. If you record well, if you mix well, I'm gonna go to you for the mix not because I feel like I should do it, but I want the best mix. Or if you master, I want the best master. If you do artwork, like I got a team of illustrators that I go to get my artwork done. Matter of fact, I have the same girl do my album cover, who was at DD172 as well. Her name's Clindy. Since 2010, 2011, same person.
So juggling both of those hats, do you think the music ever gets compromised? Because I think. Could be wrong. I think J. Cole kind of made it real popular to say I produce my own music and whatnot. So, of course, when you got a cool guy like J. Cole that says that he kind of lights the fire for other indie artists to be like, yo, I'm going to do the same thing. From my experiences, I feel that the music goes lacking when someone tries to wear too many hats. Have you ever experienced that?
Yes, and that's why I don't try to engineer. That's why I don't try to mix. I know, even with production, even if I like the song, if production-wise, if I produced it, the song could be good, but if the production is not good, I won't release it just because now you're showcasing yourself as a lyricist, but also as a producer. And so you want to put your best foot forward. I had a conversation with Crit about this and how, like...
Whoa, we just can't... You say Crit?
Yeah, with Big Crit. I with Big Crit.
We can't just say, like, we all know Crit personally.
Yeah,
like,
but we all knew Crit.
Yeah, I was like, I had to catch it. I'm like, hold up, Crit. I'm like, I think he's talking about Big Crit, just for clarity, but go ahead.
I had a conversation about Crit about this one time. Very brief. Like, we're not friends or nothing, but just I was opening and had a production question.
He is someone else that does his own.
He does his own production, and the conversation around him was that sometimes he compromises his which I don't believe. I feel more about that more so with Cole than Crit. Because Crit is produced for other people. But I think I can understand how it can be compromising, but if you have the entire song in your head,
Mhm.
you're the only person that can deliver that from a
I can
production
understand that.
and writing standpoint.
I
So
can understand that.
as an artist, I understand that. As a consumer, I do think some people will compromise because I want to be like there's I call it the Kanye precedent. There's a few precedents that was set. There's a Kanye precedent. There's a Hove precedent where like I'm not writing, I'm going there and just rap. There's a Kanye precedent where I'm the producer and the writer, are in the artist that are set that people don't realize are somewhat anomalies.
Yes.
That's not a normal thing, and these people are genius at what they do. And sometimes trying to mock a genius, you end up looking like a fool. So I, as a consumer, I this is why we went with Rain introduced me to Rico Brooks, who introduced me to Sunny Digital. That's why we wanted to go that route, was so we're not compromising the music. Can we find the best producer? This might be my favorite producer, but the best producer possible to go into the next project.
Okay.
So I said all that to answer your question that, yeah, sometimes you can compromise it by trying to do too much, but I think that there are circumstances where if you know exactly what you want song-wise to get the best song, then it's cool.
Who else you think do a good job at it besides Crit? Who kind of balances that really well? We already threw J. Cole under the bus, and I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and I just disrespect the Cole. It's just them okay earlier tapes, I feel like he could have benefited from having like other producers on there rather than it just being him, because the lyrics were so good. And I think we saw that with Friday Night Lights, where it's like I'm reaching out to some other people. And to me, that was like, okay, you.
Oh yeah, Friday Night Lights is top 2 mixtapes of all time. It's a toss up between that and Trap or Die for me.
Yeah, it's
as
up
in
there.
number 1 or number 2 mixtape of all time.
It's up there. It's in my top 10. It's definitely in my top 10. And because I think he just ventured out production wise. Other than Crit, who raps really well and makes their beats. I don't know. I gotta think about that. Because you got a lot of people who rap really well, who you don't even know that they making their beats. So that, I guess, public facing. I don't know. That's a good question. I gotta think about that.
We'll come back to it. You made mention earlier. You said DD172, which is Name and Dash.
Yeah.
And from what your manager just told us, that we definitely got to talk about. He was actually signed to Name and Dash at once upon a time. How did that actually happen? Because through my research, I did not know that. So I'm curious to know, how did you get signed to Blue Rock? What was that whole process like?
It was a joint venture. I met him through Mackenzie Edie, who was the president at that time, and I met her through Ben Fagan, who I was collaborating with consistently and just like doing shows with him. And I met Mackenzie at Dusco. They had a spot on King Street called Dusco. They were out at a beach house, and then I got invited out to the beach house, and then ended up just rapping, we kind of just shooting the shit, rapping for them, and got the invite from Mackenzie like a week later. I went to Groucho's on King Street. That's where I signed my paperwork. He brought my joint. It was a joint venture, 50-50, and giving me an imprint for Swim. That's around the time I made Swim too, and that's when I started getting into business, because they were telling me, yo, you need to have your own entity established to even do the joint venture, even if it's just your own LLC, like Matt Monday LLC or whatever it's going to be. Have your own, like they came in on complete independence, and I appreciate that. So I signed that. I moved up there like a month later, and then Mackenzie left. And I don't know if you know how like labels work, from the highest label to the lowest label. The person that brings you in, assigns you, once they leave, you could still maintain interest from the label.
I have heard.
Or you cannot maintain interest
because you don't have nobody really fighting for you.
Because you don't have nobody. The person who's supposed to work your shit ain't there. And so I respect Mackenzie, because she told me up front, she was like, yo, I'm gonna be out of here in 3 weeks to a month. You can stay, you can go, you can do whatever you want. I then had a conversation with Dame about what that was gonna look like, because I know he wasn't doing music heavy. Mackenzie was doing all the music and putting everything together. but I knew it was an opportunity for me to learn the business, and so I had a conversation with him about me staying up there, and I just wanted to learn business, and he was receptive. He's actually really, really cool. That's one of the few people who just opened up his door and just gave you resources to information.
I was always asked if I had an opportunity to have dinner with Hov for 500. I've always said I'd rather have a dinner with Dame.
Dame,
because Hov was the talent.
Mm-hmm.
Dame was. I'm not going to put all of it on Dame as if Jay is not business savvy, but Dame was that driving force. Biggs was the money, and Jay was the talent. So I would definitely rather sit down and have a conversation with Dame.
Yeah, I resonated with Dame. Dame's a hustler, and so, I come from that environment where I could sit with, like, two hustlers can sit and have a conversation about strategy, and I like the way he implements strategy into whatever he's doing. I like his approach. I like that me as a no-name artist, nobody, like, I was able to ride around with him and listen to business meetings. I was able to, like, go with him. Like, I met Combat Jack, you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, crazy, like, just stuff that normally wouldn't happen, that may not have seemed significant, like, at the time to people outside of me expecting music, but for my personal journey, I learned a lot.
Dude, just being able to tell his story. You rode around with Dame Dash.
Yeah.
You met Combat Jack, who's considered the godfather of podcasting. Like, just that alone. Most people don't even let you in on a conversation that they're having with their wife or their homeboy. I didn't say it. With their wife or their homeboy. But nonetheless, he allowed you to hear business.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Business meetings,
and that was...
things should go contractually, like how, even times where, and I had never seen this, and I guess I could say it, but even when there's no paperwork involved, where it's just like his word, my word, this is how this should go. Lawyers don't even got to be involved with some of this shit, and they seen it seen it play out.
Prior to that, that's how men did business.
Exactly.
Shake your hand. Your word is your word.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna hold you to that as well. You should hold me to that.
Absolutely.
So I think Gucci doesn't even have contracts on his artists, at least at one point in time.
Yeah.
He didn't have, because it was like, your word is your word. So no, I'm with that 100%.
Yeah, he's very big on just being honorable. So, anyway, just being an opportunity, and that's kind of where all the foundation of my business acumen started. And then getting other mentors who were execs, getting to meet them and have conversations with them. And so, while I was still in a creative mode because I came to do an album. It kind of jump started me into, like, the different businesses that could come from just the music business. So most artists think, oh, I'm gonna make an album, I'm gonna get on, I'm gonna make all this money. But there's like 10 different revenue streams that I was completely unaware of before I got up there. And then just seeing the people within those subsidiary industries, how they were making money and how they were moving. It's much different now. I think it's kind of, a lot of people are getting let go. A lot of people, like, the industry's changed since then, but just seeing there's two different ways that you could just create revenue, passive and both direct, changed my whole perspective on, okay, I'm gonna make music, but we're gonna have like 5 other checks come in from here, and here. And me and Randy were already locked in, so he got it because Randy's already in the industry as well, and it just made sense.
And what happened to that relationship? What happened to that contractual agreement or handshake? What happened to that?
He let me slide. He didn't even trip, and I got to keep the music. Like, the money that they spent on me to make it, I was able to still keep it. And it was washed. It was good.
Do you still have a relationship with him now?
Yeah, I could text him. I haven't texted him in a while. I haven't texted him in a minute because Dame moving. Dame was a wild boy. But if I was to call him, like, he'd respond. He'd give me advice. I think I spoke to him last time we spoke was, I want to say before we brought Cultura back, was the last conversation we had.
And I'm glad you said that, because that was my next question. What it is that you've learned from Dame and throughout that whole process, business-wise, how were you able to set up Cultura? What was the starting point for that? Like, all right, outside the LLC, what was the starting point?
Cultura, so they had, it wasn't called Blue Rock Fest. I forgot what it was called, what Mackenzie made. It was like this. I think it was called Blue Rock Fest. But she had, like, Currency, Crit, 88 Keys. It was like a festival in Brooklyn and in New York. Yeah, I want to say it was.
Were you there when Stanley was there too?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. That was when they were leaving. They left the older space and then went to the Orchard space. So I was like in between. So like Kenny Beats was there, Salehi, Food Collabs with New Balance was there, Dave Chang, Dave Barnett, Jonas Schwartz. I was there kind of in that transitional period.
Okay.
And so she did this festival, and I remember just seeing how the whole thing came together. I remember because I had to work merch. I remember like all the merch.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember how like seeing the process of creating it and then it being executed, and how that made me feel about me being to duplicate that same thing in Charleston. Because I felt like Charleston, what was happening was you had a lot of artists, and there were no platforms. Like, not even Charleston, I say South Carolina.
Yeah, in general, yes.
In general,
yes.
There is no real platform. And then considering the position I was in, like if I hadn't gone that route or received the blessing of even getting to be involved in that company, where would I be?
Mm-hmm.
And I knew the answer wasn't about music. It wasn't about visibility. You had the internet that was useful, but everybody didn't have the resources to translate from internet to real life without having first a platform. Like they don't even have a platform just to practice on stage performance, stage presence. And I knew how big it could be because a lot of my buzz came from me opening up for. I just happened to have a plug at the local venue. Mm-hmm. Whenever rap acts would come, I would open for them, and then he would send me off on like a 5-leg run with them. Mm-hmm. His name is Benton Montgomery. He used to work the music farm. Shout out to him.
Yeah, I remember the music farm.
He hooked me up, and like if it wasn't for him, I couldn't even tell you how I would have maneuvered to get that type of visibility. Mm-hmm. And that was like I know that was a very singular event that wasn't happening for mm-hmm. for nobody else. I just had to be at the right place, had the right mm-hmm. relationship. But that was still something that was generated by like white people who could care less whether it went left or right. There was no person that looked like me that could represent me or facilitate me in a direction for me to progress my situation. And seeing that void, one, a lot of people are reluctant because the money ain't coming in immediately.
Yeah.
And they want money.
That's definitely another one that the artist plights.
And then two, just having the resources to even put something like that on. So with Cultura, shout out to John Kenny. I had a relationship with John Kenny because I would perform at the Summer Shindig they used to have down there.
Heard about it.
So I went down there and performed, and I saw the turnout, and it was cool, but it was probably like a few hundred people, but the production was well done. And so I went to him and I was like, yo, they were going to cancel it. I was like, you should just do this straight hip hop because the hip hop, it was me and Benny. The hip hop had one of the biggest like crowd reactions outside of the headliner. I was like, oh, we could do this. Like, you ain't got to bring no major act down. That's okay from him. Fast forward, went into putting the whole thing together, did all the marketing, cause stuff I had learned from Blue Rock. Like, mm-hmm. I knew how to market it. I knew like just different little tactics to get the community involved. Got a small team, did the photo shoot. I had a relationship with all the artists because I had worked with a lot of them. And at that time, like me and Benny Benny had just, I think he either just did the Water album, he was coming off of it, or he was about to do it. I can't remember, but I know it was in that time period mm-hmm. where he had just put something out. I was not too far removed from Filthy 2, so we had work. And we did it, and I mean, we had like almost 1,000 people, over 1,000 people show up for mostly local acts. But it proved the point that
yes,
if you provide the platform and make it affordable, make it reasonable, that people will show up. And I think after John saw that with just us, it was like, okay, let's.
So you scaled that experience, and you ultimately made it your responsibility almost. Like, what, I know we can do this. I know artists need this safe space. Yeah. We need a voice for what it is that we do. Versus being tolerated, we need to be celebrated mm-hmm. as well. So you took it as your responsibility to create culture. I'm going to make sure I'm pronouncing it right. It's Cultura, right?
Cultura.
Cultura, excuse me, because it's the Spanish tense of culture, right?
Yeah.
And I was curious why you did that. Why did you actually do that?
It's Latin. It's
okay.
Latin. And just from a branding perspective, I wanted to say culture without saying culture, like the Excel Culture Festival.
Distinction.
Yeah, you want to be very distinct. And I think that's really what what the selling point is, honestly, is the culture. Because Charleston is like a rich culture. And this year, more than any year, kind of displayed that. The first 2 years, the first year we had it, and then we had that pause, and then we were trying to just kind of get back in the rhythm last year. But this year, the third year, was on full display of just Charleston culture. It was crazy. It was the best year, in my opinion, of just like seeing how it was a festival, but it felt like more like a party in Charleston from like mid 2000s.
I had a few friends that were there that were indie artists. Max Goods, Saw Selena, they were there, and I was watching. I was just like, yo, and we were supposed to be there, but a family member of mine had a death in the family, so we was unable to make it.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but the person's in this room, but you know what I'm saying? We're not going to do that, right? Okay,
That's stupid, Tim.
Nah, I said a family member. Yo, whose side are y'all on right now?
That's just stupid.
Black, you got to stop. You know better, Black.
I feel you, though.
But nonetheless, but it really looked like it was a really, really good time.
Fun time.
And I was just like, man, this right here is really dope.
Yeah.
This is really, really dope. Were there any concerns? Because you know there's a stigma around hip-hop shows.
Yeah.
Violence.
Yeah.
How do you actually steer away from that? Or is that even an idea in your mind? Like, you know what, we're not even going to entertain that right there. How do y'all actually keep that? Because you're at the Royal
American.
Right? So I'm like, they gotta be burdened with that to some degree.
In the beginning, yeah. In the beginning, the climate, when we first started, we were coming off of an incident too, where that was like the stigma. Where it was a lot of
Charleston?
Yeah, we were coming off an incident where a venue did, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but a venue did some real foul shit. And so yeah, that was a stigma. Then I think now we've done it enough to where people know what to expect, and then we kind of have like a brand identity that we protect, and so we're even conscious of like who's on the bill, who's not on the bill, not in a manner where we're trying to like gatekeep it, but in a manner where we're trying to let people know like this is what the brand is. Yeah.
We have boundaries. We have
exactly.
You have to check off these boxes.
Exactly.
No,
exactly.
I think that's perfectly fine.
And so now I don't think anybody even thinks about that. I think people are coming in thinking, oh, it's about to be crazy. Like we're about to have fun. And that was the energy the whole time. And then again, I always gotta shout out John Kinney, who owns the Royal American. He's not even on that. He's more so like, I wouldn't even understand why that is the stigma. Like he's not uncomfortable. There's none of that at all. It's just more so how can we scale this? Like how can we continue to build this brand and what it is, and just giving us the keys to be as creative as possible. Because like he knows nobody would know how to market to our people better than our people. You know what I'm saying? And I respect that, because you have a lot of entities in Charleston where you have white people telling black people how to market to black people, and that's always like a thing where I got zero tolerance with that. Like brain tag, I sometimes I get on calls and I'm barking on calls, like talking crazy, which I probably shouldn't, but whatever. So because he allows that, we're able to curate it in a way that makes sense for all parties involved. I'm an artist advocate, so the artists are getting what they need from a production standpoint. The consumer is getting what they need from also a production quality and an event quality standpoint. Like if you're going to spend that money, I don't care if it's $20, if it's $40, $50, $60, I want you to come feeling like, yo, I got to come back to this. And so...
and you're qualified to do it. Just hearing that little bit of your backstory and also being an artist, you're definitely qualified to do this.
No doubt, appreciate it.
One of the questions I had for Randy when me and Randy first spoke was, how do y'all keep the momentum going from year to year? How do you keep that thing? Like, is there a platform that y'all have to where y'all still can funnel the content while still creating conversations around it? Instead of doing the heavy lifting, because I believe it was April, it was this year, correct? It was April?
April, yeah.
So how do y'all do the heavy lifting? How do y'all, I guess, balance out that heavy lifting versus going so crazy that 90 days of promo? Is there a plan in place to keep the name going?
Absolutely. That's funny you asked that, because I posted another festival up here like the other day, and the DMs went crazy with people asking about the recap, the photos. Like people are like highly interested.
Yeah.
Being fully transparent, we're still learning a lot in real time, and we're building out in public. And I think when you building in public, sometimes the public, which ain't their responsibility, no, but sometimes they don't realize like, yo, we a small team who are trying to.
We're learning in real time.
Yeah, it's really a juggling act where you are trying to keep the brand relevant throughout the year, but also use the event as a way to funnel more resources to scale the event. Mm-hmm. So while you're trying to scale it, while also keeping it relevant, you kind of get pulled in multiple directions with limited resources. So this year the plan, like I'm after we have another project that we're working on, but as soon as that's done, like we're back on Cultura starting like July, like running it through, getting all the content out, getting a response back from the people on what they were like, what they didn't like. Like I want to actually touch the people and like, all right, what was your best part of it? What was the worst part of it? Where can we improve? So that's the plan going forward, is just making it like a brand where I don't want to go in like another lane, but keep it. This is a festival. This is coming back, and how can we keep this in your face? So,
coming out of the pandemic with Cultura. One more time.
Cultura.
Yeah. With Cultura, you had your show 2019. You and Benny, y'all were on that actual lineup. The next show that was intended for 2020 was the line that we had for 2023, which Currency was the headline. Okay, when we had that, what was that, 3 years? That was a 3-year gap in between?
Yeah, 2020, 2021, 2022, yeah.
Okay, so going into it, what was the game plan for that? Because we're under a new norm in which we're still trying to figure out how to adjust to what's going on. Let somebody cough in a small room right now. You're like, you know what I'm saying? You're doing those type of numbers, right? And now I don't think people understand how much of a number the pandemic did on the people. Like people aren't even wanting to. I'm willing to bet you the to-go orders are through the roof versus sitting down to eat now.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I bet you Netflix numbers are up versus the theaters.
Yeah.
Because people just don't want to congregate amongst people anymore. So with all of that in mind, trying to forecast what does this return look like?
Yeah.
What was some of the conversations that you and your team had?
It's crazy. We didn't even know it was going to come back, if I'm being honest. Because, like, it was a feat to bring it back. It was that 2023 year was probably the make or break for the festival.
Was it a believability with your sponsors and everybody involved, or was it more so you and the close working pieces?
It was a combination of both, because I wanted to bring it back in, I want to say 21, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was 21. But I think the people just gathering, that little stigma was still a thing. And no. 22. I'm sorry, 22. I want to bring back in 22, but even in 22, the gathering idea was still a thing that people just weren't really trying to put any money into IRL events or just live events yet on a lower scale, because we had lost so much money from the 2019, 2020. So anybody who planned anything from 2020, 2022 that didn't happen lost a ton of money. Like it was a lot of money being lost in my sponsorships. So now when the sponsorships reintroduce themselves to the market, I try to salvage that money. They're not spending money on the lower tier experimental events. So like experimental by, if you only existed for like a year or two, that money's not going there. The money is going to the larger events that have been around for the Coachellas, the Austin City Limits, the Bonnaroo's, and even they were losing money, like a lot of money. So if our top IP is losing all this money, we don't even have the money to funnel down. If we did, we probably wouldn't anyway. So that's something we had to figure out, was how are we going to reallocate funds to compensate for the funds that we were no longer getting from certain sponsorships, because we had like a major sponsor that damn near would have covered the whole thing, but they had to back out. And so that was a hurdle. It was like, all right, well, how are we gonna figure that out? We got to figure it out. Once we figured out amongst the team, then and then that was the first step. Then it was reapproaching Royal to say, all right, how do y'all want to move forward with this? Because you know, they're our partner. It's not like we just renting a venue out. They're a partner. That was a conversation where it's like, how are y'all shows doing, period? And they weren't up like that. So that was like, all right, we got to wait another year. So 23, once it was confirmed that we were going to do it, now you got to go back and get current. You got to go back and get like this sponsorship, currency, get this artist, get this stage person, get this, you know, you got to go back and get all these things.
Put the pieces back together.
Put it back together from 3 years ago. So that was its own thing. And then even some of the artists we had in that build, they wasn't even performing no more. They weren't even rapping.
Wow.
So we had to go find some other, you know, some acts. So it was tough. I ain't gonna front. It was tough, but it worked out. You know, it was one of those things that we kind of had to go in knowing like, all right, this may not go the way we want, but the goal was to kind of reintroduce the brand visibility.
It was necessary.
It was necessary because you got to have consistency. No matter how this shit is looking year to year, if you have to remain consistency.
Yes, sir.
So once that took place, it kind of like boosted the hype, but it went well. It went really well.
I was going to ask you, what was that day like for you? This right here was that make or break moment. What was that day like for you?
It was stressful. I remember it was stressful.
So you didn't enjoy yourself at all.
I didn't enjoy myself at all. 23. I tell them that all the time. I hated 23. I confront. I hated 23. I liked it. I liked the people's response.
Absolutely.
That kind of balanced it out for me. The response that people had, the response John had, because he really was hyped after that, and he really wanted to go back into it the next year. And I think the people who didn't go, the buzz spread way faster during 23 than it had, you know, since the prior year.
They was waiting for it.
They was waiting for it. Because remember, in 2020, we had announced before we had to cancel because the pandemic didn't really hit till like March. We announced January. It wasn't a thing yet. Like, so as soon as we said currency, it was out of here. Oh, it was selling.
Currency he's an act for Charleston. They love
currency. He hadn't been there in a while, and he was at like a little sweet spot where he was hot because he had just put out him and Alka just put out a tape. So
I can't get the name, but I see the cover.
Him and Al just put something out. So it was out. As soon as we announced it, we were coming off the hype of the first year because it was so good. Out of here. So, once we canceled it, it was like, oh man. So bringing it back and just seeing it come to fruition, seeing how the people responded, seeing like him go in the crowd, I think people realized, oh, this is a real thing. Like, oh, they really trying to step it up.
Right.
But it was. Internally, it was stressful. I was like, oh.
So since the success of that in 2023, and you saw that the people loved it, we need this thing.
Yeah.
Was there any pressure in 2024?
Hell yes.
So was that the reason why you had two headliners? Because it was Currency. Then I think it was you and Benny the first go around, right?
The first year it was me and Benny. I was not supposed to be on it. To be
clear.
Why
not? It's yours. Why not?
Everybody says that because trying to the process of creating it and then the process that I have to do a show
preparation
is completely. It's two different things that you got to give attention to, and like I didn't even like my set from the first year because I had been up since like 6 a.m. putting together festivals. Then you run on stage. And I will do it. I mean I plan to hop back on stage, but not at the expense of sacrificing the brand quality.
Of course. Don't do a Benzino with the stores and give you 5 mics. And
yeah.
You know that ain't that.
I'm a realist about myself and rules and friends.
Cool.
So, well, I'm sorry. What was the question?
The pressure's going into 2024.
24. You're right. So 24 is interesting because the buzz was way up and the expectation was up because of currency and how I went that year before. I think the buzz was up not solely off the people who attended, but just the people who had heard about it and seen the pictures. And I think the content going out created a buzz of like, oh, I missed this.
It created FOMO.
It created FOMO. It created crazy FOMO. And I remember going to 24. I remember me and Randy talking, and we were always going to scale it up to add more artists. Every year we trying to make it bigger and add more quality acts. It's just a matter of who and how it was going to happen because Royal is not like a park. It ain't no crazy venue. You got to consider cap, you got to consider pricing, and you got to consider the cost of rap artists is is probably more than most genres. Like rappers cost money. And in order to get the rappers that you want, you have to charge a certain ticket price. So for us, it was like, how can we keep this in the range of a still growing boutique festival, but still get an act
like
that you know can, because we want to keep it intimate, but how can we get an act
that can command that?
That can command that.
Yes, sir.
And I guess we didn't realize how unique of an artist Currency was as an underground legacy artist with the buzz that he had.
Yes.
And how do you follow that up? So leading up to it, like we get texts, we talking, and the people that they were in the comments saying names, and I'm like, yo, do they have any idea? Like
how much
it costs to get this person at a 1,500 capacity venue? You know how much we have to charge y'all $150 a ticket. I'm like, bro, I don't know what's going on.
What's the wildest name you saw? Don't say Drake. I mean, like Drake or something.
What's the wildest name? What's some stuff people were saying? They were saying like Key Glock. I saw what's up? I saw they said Key Glock. I saw somebody say he's a perfect fit. I want Key Glock, but not at the Royal.
Yeah.
God, I remember like Boss Man, Dealer. I mean, just crazy names that I understood what they were saying. But I think the public don't know how much some of these acts cost. They don't know what it is to get an act in. They don't know like what the booking process is like, the deposit process. So when we saw that, we immediately realized expectations were high. Like
which added to the
which added, man. Man, I was getting the wildest texts and phone calls. I was calling Randy like, "Hey, man,
y'all probably weren't even sleeping. Probably the
it was crazy. The booking. That's mainly Randy. Randy did a lot of that booking. Randy had to take over a lot of.
So how did y'all settle on Duke and Nick? Now, granted, I love Nick. I'm glad that y'all brought him. I'm upset that I missed it.
Yeah.
Because that album for me. Sunday Dinner, right?
Yeah,
Sunday Dinner was album of the year for me.
It was
I believe that it outdid Michael.
Yeah.
I believe it outdid Michael. And I believe Michael, Sunday Dinner made a way for Rhapsody, but that transparency, like, you know what, the superficial stuff is cool, but let me really give you me, what I'm going through, the highs, the lows. And I believe that opened the door for Rhapsody. But nonetheless, how did y'all choose Nick, Grant, and Duke?
I like Duke. I think I like Duke's energy, and I wanted at the time I wanted something that resonated. I don't want to say keep it southern, but keep that energy up. And we learned from Currency also that Currency is a unique act that is specific to like the smoker crowd, the Stoners, that's his brand. So we like this. So it translates, your headliner a lot of times translates the energy through the rest of the festival, which is something we learned. Whatever that headliner looks like, and if you look at when festivals announce their flyers, people always say, oh, they got so-and-so coming, so they get excited more so about that, for whatever reason. I know that because we were adding more larger acts, we wanted to have more variety in just the energies. And I look at festival curation almost like sequencing an album, or almost like playlisting, where
it's important.
What flow of energy are we going to have at this time of the day? So I'm conscious of, it's sunset, the sun is going down. Let's have an R&B act on stage that is super like,
I have to write that
chill,
down.
like you know what I'm saying? Like let's have an R&B act on stage in this time. All right, people start drinking around this time. It starts turning up. Let's get country because he's more like New Jack Swing. We're going to start the party here. Yeah. This is the artist that starts the party. So with getting the main acts, most of the main acts for our festival, because we have to end at about 10:45, 11 because of the city curfew, it starts at 8 o'clock. So we know at 8 o'clock, we're going like this, like straight up like this. And we might have a little dip just to catch a break. But for the most part, we're going straight up like this. So we work our way backwards. So this is going to be the most energy we have at the end, which would be Duke. Prior to that, we'll have a Nick Grant. That's more like of a chill off energy. We just coming off. Prior to him, it's going to be straight turn up and just ass shaking fun with B-Lord with the headlining DJ.
He's an act too.
He went crazy.
Yeah.
He went crazy.
B-Lord
I got footage of that, of just, and we specifically wanted B-Lord because we know what B-Lord does.
Mm-hmm.
We like getting asked, well, we don't got to think about what you made. We know exactly what you about to do.
And he has a social media footprint. He does very well with social media. And that right there, I think people don't take in consideration. If they have a social media presence, wherever that person, that artist is, some of his audience is coming too, which helps.
With exactly what we thought.
So,
exactly
yes, sir.
What we've been thinking. And he's just a good dude. Like, he helped us with 2023, just like building those relationships. So, but just his talent, like, of just like, I always think that festivals, and I think should have like a unique, I would say brand identity, but have a unique identity to how we're approaching the festival scene with Cultura, and why the idea of culture is so good, because I grew up like hearing the B-Lords, hearing the Cools, the major, but like the club DJs,
Chuck T.
The Chuck T. If we can translate those club DJs to a festival stage, it changes the whole energy of the festival.
Wow.
So you're kind of like linking it. If I go from B-Lord, was Nick in the middle, but if you go from B-Lord to Duke, the consumers like, dog, we ain't really stopped since 8 o'clock. It's 9:45, and we've been moving and having fun nonstop. Coming off the openers where I just had New Jack Swing, I had R&B. I saw couples. There was a couple there who met at the first one, who came back to this one and came up and talked to me. Dope. So just because like you really creating moments with people, you're really establishing like the soundtrack and the background for somebody to have a moment.
They named their kid after your festival. Crazy.
I saw them at the silent disco, and they came up to me and she was like, "Yo, I met her here, though. I love this." I was like, "What?"
Yeah.
And they still together.
That's a moment.
So yeah, just I look at it as like curating the soundtrack for your evening. Like, what does that look like? And I think Duke was a good way to end it. I thought Damani was crazy. I thought Damani was
when
insane.
y'all added him at the last minute, right?
That was the last
I seen that. I was like, oh, that kid right there.
Damani was crazy. Man. I was Randy. Damani was crazy. And just like with his stage presence and what he even brought to the fest, because that was a whole different vibe from Nick and Duke. So now you got three artists that are up there that are completely like, like as far as notoriety in the same realm, but just completely separate sounds. So you got a whole like
you're gonna surpass his pops too lyrically.
Dog,
he's one of them. He can rap.
I didn't know.
He made T.I. work on that song Family Connect off of the Libra Scale album.
Yeah.
He made T.I. work on that one. I was like, he can, you know what I'm saying? So
I like him. And all the girls was hyped when we announced it. So it was just a matter of because we had Asia Bryant.
I didn't know he had a female audience like that.
What?
I didn't know that.
God, they lined up at it. They lined up at his merch tent and blocked the food trucks trying to go.
I didn't know that.
It was insane. A lot of women who came out there for him. So it was good. It was it was just we kind of go on what's necessary. It's a combination of like pricing, venue, availability, because it's artists who we wanted to get, who we could have gotten, but they weren't available at the time. So yeah, man.
Do you have an idea who's going to be the headliner for next year?
Yes. Yeah. Strong idea. Yeah.
Can we get a hint?
I don't even know if we should do that.
Is there any hint? Nah.
I don't even know, but yes. I know. We know what we want for next year.
How likely is it?
It's pretty likely. It's pretty likely.
Congratulations in advance.
It's pretty likely.
You said you was working a merch table when you was with DD172, right? Mm-hmm. Is that what led to you actually creating the merch, creating the brand Swim for?
It's gonna sound crazy, but Jim Jones' merch, his line Vamp Life led to me making Swim, because Dave Chang from DD172, like I worked under them, like Dave Chang, Dave Barnett, Jonas Schwartz, and Clindy Lindenbaum. They pretty much, that was like the Vamp Life team aside from like Jim. And it's like Dave Chang did the design. Like I just saw how they did it. And then I saw like the revenue being made from a brand that was not something crazy.
He had a moment.
It was a moment.
Yeah.
But Jim was getting bread. And I'm not speaking of nobody's money, but Jim was getting money.
Wasn't that around the time when Slow Bucks was popping too, right?
Yeah,
I think it was that moment, right?
That era, yeah. And I just thought, just to see it happen in a room, like here's the design, here's the manufacturer, they're actually going out, like have a vibe and going out to conferences and getting it in stores. Just
in
seeing
Vegas,
that
the
process.
Magic Show in Vegas.
Yeah, going out to Magic.
Yeah, I saw him out there.
just seeing that process from concept to
online,
execution.
I wasn't there online.
Yeah. And it was if you were inspired by that, it's like, yo, that, and just the effort was like, it was just this the team, this the product, this what we gonna do. And I saw it go out and I saw it come back in. And I was like, yo, that's crazy. Like that's
And SWIM is an acronym.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the acronym?
SWIM is a Southern Wealthy Mentality. So it plays on the idea of like black people can't swim.
Okay.
But so it's more of a statement of saying swim. Because that's really based on your mentality of what you can and can't do. So everything we doing are not orthodox, but they're unorthodox thing that people would normally be like, oh, y'all probably can't do that or won't do that. But it's all based in the mentality you have, what type of fortitude you have to get through the times when shit gets shaky, and just the whole idea of just the tenacity to progress forward. So for us, the whole thing is a mentality based, and that's kind of what we preach to people is whatever it is you're doing. I think the foundation of it is, as far as the success or its non-success, is based in your mentality of how you can maneuver it. And a lot of people have the talent. I see people with crazy talent and crazy skill sets, but they don't have the mentality to, transition that into something that can progress their life. So
absolutely, gets back into the business aspect of it too.
Exactly. And so it's for me, all this is mentality based. So like my mentality is we want to win, not at the cost of our integrity, our dignity, but we want to win. And I think a win for us is a win for like the people that we are doing this for, because we're genuine in our efforts. Like we genuinely want to help artists. We genuinely pay, like we pay people. You know what I'm saying? We ain't telling artists y'all got to pay us to perform on here. We're actually paying artists who are trying to come up. So yeah, it's our mentality, bro. Southern wealth, our wealth is in our mentality and how much we can help people.